I was muted, my bad. Happy Monday, everyone. My name is Janelle Villiers. I am the host of the Other Side podcast, where I am all about the other side of the mental health journey that we're all on to do better, be better. But also, I am also helping people on the other side of the journey of writing books. So I love to speak to you and give you tips about writing, about publishing, editing, all of the things, as well as talk to other authors. I love bringing other authors on so they can share their wisdom and knowledge with everyone as well too. I'm just here for growth. We're here for growth, whether it be in the book space or in the mental health space. I am here for all of that. We are in Women's Month. So shout out to all the women out there. So many of us are doing so many things all at once. And I just want you to know that I see you. You are seen, you are loved, you are worthy, and you are valuable. And I just want to thank everyone who's going to jump on here, for whether it's live or in the recording later. I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for hopping on. And so I have topics that I typically go through and we get into those topics. I love getting into them. So if you have any questions, about book writing that you want me to answer, please let me know, because then that will be like the topic for a future show. Don't mind doing that at all. And I'm really excited because today is, can your ego sabotage your love life? Really good topic. Let's get into it. So I am not going to be the only one who is talking to you all and having conversation around this. I am excited because today's guest, not only is she an author, and we're going to talk about this, she is a wonderful human being, an amazing, I almost want to say has such a strong feminine energy to her that is I hope to have the intuitive nature that she has. It is really and truly impressive and something that I aspire to have. I've enjoyed having so many conversations with her. She is definitely an impact author. She's out there to make impact in the world. And so I'm excited to bring to you all Katie Slade.
Hi there, I'm Katie Slade, author of The Virtuous Vagina, How to Beat a Player at His Game and Win at Self-Love. And now it's getting recognized by an independent film production company.
Yeah.
Hey, there you are.
Hello, Miss Janelle.
Hello. And hello to Lucia. We see you in Merida.
Okay,
awesome.
Yes.
And hello, City to Inspire. I know it's Donnelly. So please, just so you know, anybody who's watching live, feel free to put your comments and your questions in the chat. We see them and we'll be able to answer them live. So Katie, thank you so much for joining. I am thrilled to have you on the show today to talk about today's topic and just learn from you. I know so many of us can learn from you.
Oh, Janelle, thank you so much. It is such a privilege to be here with you. You are such a dynamic woman yourself, and I just want to say thank you so much for supporting authors in the way that you do, because the field is huge, and there are so many writers out there and so many books for us to check out. So I just thank you and applaud you for really giving us a platform to make our voices heard and to inspire people to really check out our work, because, you know, for many of us, it's all coming from the heart.
Oh, well, thank you for that. And I am excited to even have this platform to be able to do this. So for those people who don't know you that well, maybe this is the first time that they're meeting you, share a little bit about your books. And so that way they can understand why you are the perfect person to answer today's topic question.
Okay, great. Well, it'll be my pleasure. I started on this journey because I realized that throughout my life, I've always been dedicated to working with women and helping women. I was a licensed electrologist when I lived in LA. I spent many years in the fashion industry. So I've always been very, very connected to women. And post-COVID, when I had to restructure some things in my life, I started focusing on the strength that I built in myself by taking the time to really pay more attention to my life and keeping relationships at bay, just so I could really hone in on what my next moves were going to be in life. And so as I started thinking about that, thinking about creating a workshop, being a mentor for other women, I thought, I came across an email one day, and it indicated that you could capture a lot more attention writing a book. And so my first book, The Victorious Vagina, How to Beat a Player at His Game and Win at Self-Love, was just a true inspiration for me to share a very intense and very, very dramatic situation with a man that I met. And the book is now also available in Spanish. Well, it'll be out in a couple of weeks in Spanish. But I have had so many women, thank you, mention to me, especially living here in Mexico, that they really, really wanted to tap into what I had to say, but their English was not so proficient. My second book, The Virtuous Vagina, came on the heels of that. Yes, Janelle, thank you for purchasing it. It came on the heels of the first book because I just felt it was, again, so important to put as much information out there for women, especially now in this world of like crazy dating apps, and everybody is just trying to figure out how they're going to find a relationship, make a relationship work. And my message is really about taking time as women to really analyze what we want out of life. Who are we really at our core before we start looking externally at someone else to come into the picture? So that was the impetus.
Well, okay. So then just based on that, and I'm sure people are like chomping at the bit now seeing the titles. People can understand why you are definitely the best person to answer today's topic question, which is, can your ego sabotage your love life? Tell us your thoughts around this.
Yeah, I came to realize that our ego plays so much more of a significant role than what we even realize is happening at the moment when we meet someone. I went through it myself. We don't even realize the pattern that we're falling into. But instead of really taking the time to truly analyze who the person is on the internal aspects of their persona, we focus so much on the exterior, whether they're good looking, the kind of job they have. Are they smart and funny and witty? Are they big socializers? Are they the life of the party?
If you can relate, put relate in the chat.
All of these things that are just like make us feel so electric and energized when we're interacting with this person. But what's happening too behind the scenes is that our ego is feeding into all of that surface element of who the person is. And it allows us to start becoming very enraptured without really getting to the core of who this individual is. Another big thing that is an ego-driven element, especially for us as women, is having a successful man. Oh, what does your boyfriend do? For me, I was he's a financial advisor. It's like you just, it gives you credibility as well because you're dating someone like this. But it's just a title. Who was he really behind the scenes? I make reference to him in the first book, and he was a real mama's boy that just couldn't do any wrong in her eyes, and that perpetuated a behavioral pattern that I was first trying, nobody's perfect, and, I can help him to make some changes and that whole idea of changing. But again, my ego was so behind all of that. Because who are we to think that we can change someone? Doesn't that come from a very egotistical place? Mm-hmm. So that's what I really discovered on this journey when I stepped back. I'm going into my 9th year of celibacy now. Mm-hmm. And it is it's like such a breath of fresh air to be in a place where you're not preoccupied with who's coming along, what's going to happen, where's my next relationship, where's the next guy. And it really sets us on a course of being so much more productive and giving ourselves self-love.
Okay, well, a couple of things that you mentioned there. So we haven't even gotten to the celibacy part yet, but you've already like tipped into it. So I feel like we need to get into this in the Virtuous Vagina. This is something that you talk about a little bit more extensively, right? This time of celibacy. Why do you feel like there's so many things. Okay, we'll talk about that first. Then I want to go back to the ego-driven thing. But why do you feel like, I don't know, like a lot of people in society almost look down on celibacy? Because you just described many positive aspects that come from it. So why do you think it is that we fear going into a lifestyle of celibacy?
I think because there's such a societal stigma, especially for women, that if you're not with somebody, something's wrong with you. And once you hit a certain age, then you start falling into the spinster category. Doesn't even matter what you look like. It's just like, oh, you haven't been with a man? Like, there's got to be something really wrong with you. And it's something that, again, because the way I look at it, Janelle, is it really started cresting in the 60s and 70s with the sexual revolution, with the feminist movement, where this all went from being something that was very pure and something to be revered to being, well, hey, if you're not out there having a sex and having a good time, you're just not with it. So you're like a dud. And that's where I think the stigma of celibacy started really coming into play. And I think that also the connection to the religious elements of it as well, for some people, they just feel like, well, it's too much of a restriction and too much of a confinement. And why should I have to wait to be married or make sure that a relationship is solid before I do that? Why can't I just have fun? And the interesting thing about it is that there's so much documentation, especially now, about the hookup generation and lifestyle and how empty and depleted it actually makes people feel. It's almost like doing drugs. They get this very high dopamine level, and then when the event is over, they fall into this real crash of true depression, of questioning their self-worth, because you're getting into the most private elements of who we are as human beings, and it's not that in any way, shape, or form am I anti-relationships or marriage or anything. No, I'm just trying to share with women that we need to recognize the preciousness of that and value it for ourselves, because in turn, a man is going to only value that more about you, in my opinion. If he's someone that's going to turn his nose up at the fact that you've been celibate for a long time, I don't believe he's the man that you want to be with. Right. I really don't. I think someone who is mature and has his head on his shoulders is going to respect that and know that you haven't just been this round the way girl, running and getting it every second. It's like, there's a stigma to that as well. So that's where I think that people are starting to, and I want to be a voice that starts to wake it up to the positive elements of what it brings to one's life. And it doesn't mean that you can't be dating or flirtatious or having fun.
Right.
Yeah.
I completely agree with you on that. That's, it seems like it's restrictive, but to your point, it's actually quite liberating because it allows for you to focus on the individual and the person and who they are, which brings me back to the ego part where you described it's our ego that makes us want to change who the person is, right? If we give ourselves the freedom to just like put sex is not on the table for right now, but you give yourself the freedom to actually get to know somebody, I think it would be interesting because then you'll be able to really reflect on who they are and if this person is right for you. Where do you think, because gosh, that's super relatable, this idea that like, oh, I can change them.
Yes. Yes. We do it all the time.
I want to get into that because I do think that there's some connection between ego and celibacy. So I'm going to loop back to that afterwards. But I really want to dig into this the side of the ego that really feels like we can change someone? Like, and how do you think that impacts the relationship itself, if that's what we're constantly thinking?
Yeah, and it's funny because I was married, and my ex-husband, was a great person, very good to me, very loving, but very moody, really not happy in his core. And I think that that's something that also ties back to ego. And if we're really happy and secure in who we are, our ego has less of an opportunity to interject itself into situations because we're really coming from a place of being very grounded in knowing who we are and really appreciating ourselves. And with that, then there are things that we're going to say, well, you know what? I don't really need to put up with that because I know who I am and I'm good with that perspective of things. I think that the whole idea of the ego being the precipitator of changing someone in a relationship is taking on like that God-like situation that we can make this person better and more suited for us, when that's really not the way. And, you know, there's just, the old sayings of like, oh, no one's perfect and things like that. We tend to use these things and make allowances for people when we really shouldn't. It's not about perfection. It's about really aligning with the other person in a true like-minded fashion. And again, that's where, like, you know, when you're like, oh yeah, okay, well, he's really handsome and he makes good money and, you know, he's good to his mom and all of this stuff that's like, okay, but there are these other elements. And I know that, you know, if I just start to do this or say that or whatever, it'll change him and it'll make him even better. And these are, I think, just very delusional kinds of motions that we go through as human beings. I mean, you know, parents can't change their children. They try their best to instill things in them so that they're going to come up the right way. But there's a certain fingerprint that's already there. And then that's up to the person to want to identify those things and make those changes for themselves.
For themselves. I think that's the key aspects of it, right? Like somebody has to decide to make a change because they want to make the change, not because we've decided that, like, oh, they need to change.
Exactly.
And when you said delusional, I was like, that part, it is a little delusional.
Isn't it? Because I can tell
our parents can't change necessarily your children. So why would we think that we could change our partners?
Yep. Exactly. As the saying goes, what you see is what you get. So, you know, it's either really hand in glove or it's not. If there's, I mean, again, there are these levels in terms of, I was talking to a very dear friend of mine. She's been married for almost 38 years now. And she and her husband, they're very happily married. They have many children. And when we were having lunch, she was telling me how her husband is always leaving umbrellas or bags in inconvenient areas of a restaurant. So like, because he wants to put it out of the way. So he'll put the umbrella behind the plant stand. And in that, she's like, why are you hiding it? You know, you're going to forget it. Just like leave it out in the open. And she said, you know, she's beyond trying to change this about him. All she'll do is just when they arrive at some place, she'll say, just put it right there. Just leave it where we can see it. You know, and he's come to comply. Now that's pretty much, I mean, I don't know, that can be a minor or a major thing. My ex, the Jewish one that I mentioned, he was infamous for leaving things constantly, cell phones, credit cards. We once drove back 45 minutes to a garage, to a gas station, because he couldn't find his cell phone and he thinks he left it on top of the gas pump 45 minutes. So
Man.
those kinds of forgetfulness things can be major issues. Fortunately for my friend Diane, that's not a big one. So there are little things in people's personas that we can, subtly try to change or make suggestions, but it's the bigger things that become really problematic, or those kinds of forgetful, lack of memory situations, as I said, that can erupt into more of an issue when they're continuously creating chaos in one's life. And, that was one of the reasons I'm no longer with my ex, but there are several others. So, but
that's not the only reason.
it's
okay.
like,
so I want to make sure that people have the opportunity to ask you questions because we're winding down on time. But I love that you're bringing up some examples, because examples are really, really helpful when trying to figure this out for yourselves. So Donnelly from City to Inspire asks, how do you balance making space for yourself while preserving a place for others to connect? I think this is a great question.
Yeah. Well, for me personally, I just have to say I just have certain boundaries in terms of making space for myself is something that can be challenging at times, because sometimes people don't understand if you're not accepting dates or not accepting opportunities to connect. I try to do my best, because as a writer, we do spend a lot of alone time and we need that solitude to be creative. So I do try to be very aware of that and make the time to really say, okay, let's work out a plan where we can both meet at a time that's going to be convenient for both of us. And it's funny, a good friend of mine now has just expressed to me that she knows a friend of hers that's interested in getting to know me. And it's funny because it's just kind of come out of the blue, and I'm thinking like, okay, there's just certain things that I'm going to have to explain to him in terms of my lifestyle. And I think that's the beginning of starting to understand whether someone's really going to gel with you or not. So I hope that answers.
Yeah, I have another friend who also says, like, instead of giving people ultimatums, why don't you just tell them up front you're like the things that the lines that you're not going to cross from the very beginning.
Right, where your boundaries are.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then people can decide, whether they're going to move forward with that or not. So that's totally fine. Okay, so I love that idea. Also, if you have a question, please go ahead and put it in the comments. We're going to make sure that we get your question to Katie so she can answer. I wanted to come back to the celibacy bit a little bit, because I do think one of the other things that makes it challenging for people to practice celibacy is ego. So I'd love for you to talk about that. Like, how is the ego and the practicing celibacy sometimes contradictory, or sometimes the ego makes it hard for the other to take place?
Sure. I think that because we're all ultimately we're designed truly to be social people, and for the most part to be partners. And so I think that the ego plays a very big role in this, because there's this element that runs in the back of our minds of constant pursuit. And that's on the male and the female side now. And I think it's even kind of waning a bit on the male side, because things are just so out of place in today's world with who has what responsibility in terms of the male energy, the female energy, all of that. But I think that the ego really plays a huge part in it, because, again, we want to be wanted. We want to know that there's somebody out there that's desirous of us. And so that becomes the front thinking idea, which I believe is really, really pushed by the ego, because it's like, well, there's nothing wrong with me. I should be with someone. I should have a relationship. I should be, going out on dates and being seen and so forth. It's all part of that, which is that juncture between us being human beings and the societal pressures that are placed upon us as people trying to navigate through life as it's changed so much. Because we are in such a different time. And this is a big motivation for me too, and sharing and talking to women about where we are. Because when we go back 40, 50 years, there was a specific role. There was this traditional situation that people fell into. But now when you have so many different choices and how you want to live your life, it opens up the opportunity for you to really be more discerning about what you want and what you're willing to accept. So I think that people are being led too much by their ego. I mean, okay, let's come down to this. Let's talk about plastic surgery for a second. How much of that is ego driven, right? I mean, you talk about changing someone else. When you really want to change yourself to such a significant level as so many women today are. And I'm not putting it down. I understand sometimes people just want to make certain subtle improvements, but we know that there's a whole other side of the spectrum that goes full tilt. And that again, what is this, all of this enhancement to attract a man, to lure him in? Like, again, it's external. Who are you? You know, you're like, I made a post a while ago and I said, you know, when you lead, when you dress provocatively and your body is your calling card, what do you think a guy's response is going to be to that? You're not showing him any other element of who you are, just that you've objectified yourself to the maximum. Again, that to me is total ego. Would you agree?
Yes. That is like a whole other topic right there. I love that you said that. When your body is your calling card, how do you expect a man to react to that? I mean, yeah, he's going to respond to the body. Not to your mind, not to your heart, not to your values, not to your lifestyle.
You know, it's like you see when a man sees a woman that really carries herself with class, he's in a state of, he's like, wow, that's a lady. And it's known. I mean, even in the hip hop culture, what is that big song by Usher? He wants a lady in the street, but a bad girl in bed. He wants, you know. But yeah, but isn't it even on that level? I mean, yeah. I mean, guys will always look at someone who is extremely provocative. It's who doesn't? Even we as women will turn around and look at a woman and go, "Oh my God, I can't believe she's wearing that," you know. So. You know, I think that when you really carry yourself in a certain level of distinction, your first impression to that person is like, wow, she thinks highly of herself, or she carries herself so well. And I think isn't that just so much more important? Doesn't that make you feel even more valued? Rather than looking like, you know, you're just another one of these women who are trying to follow the fashion of the famous K people.
to remain nameless. There you
go.
This has been absolutely amazing. We have to have you come back so we can literally have tea and talk more.
Okay. It'll be a pleasure.
If you got value today from our conversation with Katie, please, please, please put a V in the chat so we know that you received value. Look, Katie is a real person. I made sure to put in the description. So if you're watching on Instagram or Facebook, you have all of the ways that you can reach out to her, whether that's on Instagram. There's her Instagram. If it's on, there it is, her Facebook. There is her TikTok. You can find her everywhere. She is everywhere. Please, please, please go out and get her books, The Victorious Vagina and The Virtuous Vagina. They are now available. And I put in the description, you can also find the links to the books there as well. So you can make sure you can grab them. I mean, really and truly, thank you so, so much, Katie. This has been like really and truly a joy.
Thank you so much, Janelle. I mean, the pleasure really, really has been mine. I thank you for the invite to come back. I think there's so much more that we can re-explore on this subject and go a little bit deeper on some of the topics. But I just thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to introduce myself to your audience and to anybody out there on Instagram that's watching and YouTube. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I hope that our conversation has given people some food for thought about making some improvements in their lives and giving themselves some more self-love. So
absolutely. We didn't even get to the self-love. That was the other thing. Time just goes by too fast. It goes by too fast.
Exactly.
Thank you again, Katie. Tons of food for thought for us to continue the conversation in the future. 100%.
Exactly, Janelle.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Have an amazing rest of your night. It has been wonderful. I'll be back again next week, same time. See you then.
All right, Janelle. Thanks. Bye, everybody.